The morning sun hadn't quite broken through the clouds when 12-year-old Sophia stepped through the front gates of Jefferson Middle School. Her legs trembled with each step, not from the cool October air but from the weight she carried on her back. Strapped to her in a patchwork sling made from old bedsheets and rope was her mother, Victoria, whose body had long since betrayed her to the cruel progression of multiple sclerosis. Sophia's breathing came in short, labored gasps. The 3-mile walk from their apartment had taken nearly 2 hours this morning, much longer than usual. She'd had to stop every few minutes to rest, leaning against telephone poles and bus stop benches, feeling her mother's fevered body against her back. Victoria had been burning up since midnight, her skin hot to the touch, her words barely coherent when she tried to speak. Almost there. "Mama," Sophia had whispered over her shoulder more than once during the journey. "Just hold on a little longer." The school building loomed ahead, and Sophia felt a mix of relief and shame wash over her. Relief that she'd made it, that she could finally set down her burden for a moment. Shame that she had to bring her mother here at all, that their lives had come to this desperate point. It hadn't always been this way. 2 years ago, they'd been a normal family. Her father had worked at the automotive plant. Her mother had been a librarian's assistant, and Sophia had been just another kid worried about math homework and playground drama. Then her mother's diagnosis came, swift and devastating. The medical bills piled up faster than her father could handle. He'd lasted 8 months before he packed a single suitcase one Tuesday morning and simply left. No note, no goodbye, just gone. Since then, it had been just Sophia and her mother against the world. Victoria's condition deteriorated rapidly without proper treatment. They couldn't afford the medications, the physical therapy, the equipment she needed. One by one, they sold everything of value. The TV, the laptop, her mother's jewelry, even Sophia's bicycle. Their apartment had become sparse and cold, with just a mattress on the floor, a small table, and 2 chairs that wobbled. 3 months ago, Victoria lost the ability to walk entirely. Her legs simply wouldn't respond anymore, no matter how hard she tried. Sophia had stayed home from school for 2 weeks, terrified to leave her mother alone. But the truancy officer had come knocking, threatening involvement from Child Protective Services. The thought of being separated from her mother was more than Sophia could bear. So she'd made a choice that no 12-year-old should have to make. She'd figured out a way to bring her mother with her. The first few times, she'd managed to get her mother settled in the apartment, propped up with pillows and water within reach before heading to school, but Victoria's health was declining. Last week, Sophia had come home to find her mother on the floor, having fallen while trying to reach the bathroom. She'd been there for hours, crying and calling out with no one to hear her. That's when Sophia knew she couldn't leave her alone anymore. This morning had been the worst yet. Victoria's fever had spiked during the night, and she'd been mumbling things that didn't make sense, her eyes glassy and unfocused. Sophia had almost stayed home, had almost said forget it, forget school, forget everything, but they'd already received 2 warnings about her attendance. One more and the authorities would get involved. She couldn't risk that, so she'd fashioned the sling, helped her mother into it with gentle hands and soothing words, and set off in the pre-dawn darkness. Now, as she approached the main entrance, Sophia saw Mr. Chen, the school janitor, propping open the doors for the day. He was an older man, maybe in his 60s, with kind eyes and hands roughened by decades of hard work. Sophia had always liked him. He never made fun of her worn-out shoes or the fact that her clothes were too small and had been washed so many times they were faded and thin. Mr. Chen looked up from his work, and his eyes went wide. The mop he'd been holding clattered to the concrete, the sound echoing in the quiet morning air. "Dear God," he breathed. Rushing toward her, Sophia wanted to explain, wanted to tell him everything was fine, but her legs finally gave out. She sank to her knees on the walkway, barely managing to twist her body so her mother wouldn't hit the ground hard. Mr. Chen was there in an instant, his strong hand supporting Victoria's weight, easing her down gently onto the concrete. "What happened? Are you hurt? Is she breathing?" The questions tumbled from his mouth as he carefully worked to untie the makeshift sling. "She's sick," Sophia managed to say, her voice cracking. "She has a fever. I couldn't leave her alone." Mr. Chen's hands moved with surprising gentleness as he freed Victoria from the sling. She was conscious, but barely, her eyes rolling back as she tried to focus on his face. Her skin was pale except for the bright red flush of fever across her cheeks. "How long has she been like this?" Mr. Chen asked, pulling off his jacket to bundle it under Victoria's head. Since last night, she's been getting worse. Sophia's teeth were chattering now, the exhaustion and fear finally catching up with her. I didn't know what else to do. I can't miss school again. They said they'd call the police. And I can't let them take me away from her. I can't. Shh, it's okay. It's okay now. Mr. Chen's voice was steady and calm, the kind of voice that made you believe things really would be okay. You did the right thing coming here. You're not in trouble. We're going to help you. He pulled out his radio, the one all the maintenance staff carried. This is Chen at the main entrance. I need the principal and the nurse out here immediately. We have an emergency. The word emergency made Sophia's heart clench. She crawled over to her mother, taking her burning hand in both of hers. Mama, can you hear me? We're at school now. Someone's going to help us. Victoria's eyes found her daughter's face, and for a moment they cleared. Her cracked lips moved, forming words that Sophia had to lean in close to hear. My brave girl, Victoria whispered. I'm sorry. So sorry. Don't be sorry, Mama. Don't ever be sorry. Tears were streaming down Sophia's face now, hot and fast. You're going to be okay. They're going to help us. Within minutes, people were rushing out of the building. Principal Davidson, a tall woman with graying hair usually pulled back in a tight bun, was the first to arrive. She took one look at the scene and immediately pulled out her cell phone. Behind her came the school nurse, Mrs. Patterson, carrying her medical bag. A few early arriving teachers followed, their faces shifting from curiosity to shock to compassion in quick succession. Mrs. Patterson knelt beside Victoria, her practiced hands checking pulse, temperature, responsiveness. Her expression grew more concerned with each passing second. She needs to be in a hospital, she said firmly, looking up at Principal Davidson. Her fever is dangerously high and she's severely dehydrated. I'm calling 911 right now, the principal replied. Already dialing. Sophia felt someone drape a warm blanket around her shoulders. She looked up to find one of the teachers, Ms. Rodriguez, crouching beside her with worried eyes. Let's get you inside, sweetheart, Ms. Rodriguez said gently. You must be exhausted. I can't leave my mother, Sophia said immediately, clutching Victoria's hand tighter. You won't have to. We'll stay right here with her until the ambulance comes. Ms. Rodriguez settled down on the ground beside Sophia, wrapping an arm around the girl's shaking shoulders. How long have you been carrying her like this? The question opened something inside Sophia, and the whole story came pouring out. Sophia hadn't meant to tell them everything. She'd spent so long keeping their secrets, hiding the truth behind careful lies and practiced smiles. But sitting there on the cold concrete with her mother barely conscious beside her, and kindness surrounding her for the first time in months, the walls she'd built came crumbling down. It's been 2 weeks since I first brought her, Sophia heard herself saying, her voice hollow with exhaustion. Before that, I was leaving her alone, but she fell. I found her on the floor and she'd been there for hours, maybe the whole day, and I couldn't do that anymore. Ms. Rodriguez's arm tightened around her shoulders. More teachers had gathered now, forming a protective circle around them. Sophia could see the shock and sorrow on their faces, but she couldn't stop talking. My dad left us 2 years ago, right after Mom got diagnosed. He just couldn't handle it, I guess. She got worse so fast. We had to choose between paying for her medicine or paying rent. And we kept choosing the medicine, but then we couldn't afford that either. So now we're 3 months behind on rent and there's an eviction notice on our door and I don't know what we're going to do. The words tumbled out faster now, years of fear and loneliness finding their voice. I wake up at 4 in the morning every day to help her use the bathroom and get her cleaned up and dressed. Then I make us both something to eat, but sometimes there's not much food. So I just give her mine and tell her I already ate. Then I have to get her into the sling, and it takes so long because I have to be careful not to hurt her, and then we walk. We walk for 2 hours because I can't carry her on the bus. They wouldn't let me anyway, and we don't have money for bus fare. Principal Davidson had finished her call and was now kneeling on Sophia's other side, listening intently. Her usual stern expression had completely melted away, replaced by something raw and human. After school, we walk back home, Sophia continued, staring at her mother's pale face. It takes even longer in the afternoon because I'm so tired. Sometimes my legs shake so bad I think I'm going to drop her. When we get home, I do my homework while trying to take care of her. I help her eat dinner, help her use the bathroom again, give her the few pills we can still afford, and then I clean whatever needs cleaning. By the time I finally get to sleep, it's usually past midnight. Then I wake up at 4 and do it all over again. Sophia, Principal Davidson said softly, and there was something in her voice that made Sophia finally look at her. Why didn't you tell anyone? Why didn't you come to us for help? The question hit Sophia like a physical blow. She'd asked herself the same thing so many times, especially during those long, dark walks to and from school. Because I was scared, she admitted, and saying it out loud made her feel like a little kid again. The truancy officer said if I kept missing school, they'd investigate our home situation. I thought if anyone found out how bad things were, they'd take me away from my mom. She's all I have. I can't lose her too. The sound of sirens cut through the morning air. The ambulance was close now, and Sophia felt panic rising in her chest. They were going to take her mother to the hospital, and she had no idea how they'd pay for it. They already owed thousands to hospitals and clinics. This would just bury them deeper. Mrs. Patterson was still monitoring Victoria, who seemed to be drifting in and out of consciousness. Her pulse is thready, the nurse reported. They need to hurry. The paramedics arrived with a stretcher and professional efficiency. Sophia watched as they checked her mother's vital signs, asked Mrs. Patterson questions, and prepared to load Victoria into the ambulance. She stood up, her legs nearly buckling beneath her. I'm going with her, Sophia announced, daring anyone to argue. Of course you are, Principal Davidson said immediately. But first we need to get some information. Do you have any other family? Anyone we can call? Sophia shook her head. My mom's parents died before I was born. My dad's family didn't want anything to do with us after he left. There's nobody else. The principal exchanged glances with the teachers around them. Something passed between them, an unspoken understanding that Sophia couldn't quite read. All right, Principal Davidson said decisively. I'm coming with you to the hospital. Ms. Rodriguez, please take over my morning duties. Mr. Chen, could you bring Sophia's backpack to my office? Everyone else, I need you to meet in the conference room during first period. We're going to figure this out. Sophia wanted to ask what they were going to figure out, but the paramedics were lifting her mother onto the stretcher. She rushed to Victoria's side, taking her hand again. I'm here, Mama, I'm right here. Victoria's eyes flickered open, more focused now than they'd been in hours. School, she whispered. You should stay in school. Mom, no, I'm not leaving you. Your education. Victoria's voice was so weak Sophia had to lean close to hear her. It's all you have left. You're what I have left, Sophia said fiercely, tears streaming down her face again. Everything else can wait. The ride to the hospital passed in a blur. Principal Davidson sat beside Sophia in the ambulance, a steady presence that somehow made the chaos feel more bearable. She'd called ahead to the emergency room, explaining the situation, and when they arrived, the staff was ready. They whisked Victoria away immediately, leaving Sophia in a waiting area with forms to fill out. She stared at the paperwork helplessly. Insurance information? They didn't have insurance. Address? Would the apartment they were being evicted from count? Emergency contact? There was no one to write down. Let me help you with that, Principal Davidson said gently, taking the clipboard from Sophia's shaking hands. We'll figure it out together. They sat in uncomfortable plastic chairs while doctors worked on Victoria behind closed doors. The principal made phone calls, her voice low and urgent. Sophia caught fragments of conversation. Social services, emergency funding, immediate assistance. Each phrase felt like a foreign language. An hour passed, then 2. Sophia's exhaustion had moved beyond physical tiredness into something almost dreamlike. She felt disconnected from her body, watching the scene from somewhere far away. Finally, a doctor emerged, still wearing his surgical mask pulled down around his neck. Are you Victoria's family? I'm her daughter, Sophia said, jumping to her feet. Is she okay? The doctor's expression was kind but serious. She's stable now. We've got her fever down and we're treating her with IV fluids and antibiotics. She had a severe infection that's been left untreated for too long. Another day or two and... He trailed off, but Sophia understood what he wasn't saying. Can I see her? In a little while. She's sleeping now, which is what she needs most. But I need to talk to you about her ongoing care. He looked at Principal Davidson. Is there somewhere private we can speak? They followed him to a small consultation room. The doctor pulled out a chart, and Sophia saw her mother's name at the top. followed by pages of medical terminology she didn't understand. Your mother's multiple sclerosis is advanced, the doctor began. She needs medication, physical therapy, and full-time care. Without proper treatment, her condition will continue to deteriorate rapidly. I'm looking at her records here, and it seems she hasn't had her disease-modifying therapy in over 8 months. We couldn't afford it, Sophia said quietly. The prescriptions cost thousands of dollars every month. The doctor nodded sympathetically. I understand. Medical costs can be overwhelming, but there are programs available. Assistance funds, disability benefits. Has anyone helped you apply for these? Sophia shook her head. I didn't know how. I tried looking online once at the library, but the forms were so complicated, and I didn't understand what they were asking for. You've been handling all of this alone? The doctor asked, and Sophia heard the disbelief in his voice. You're 12 years old? Almost 13, Sophia replied, as if that somehow made a difference. The doctor sat back in his chair, running a hand over his face. I'm going to be honest with you. Your mother needs extensive care. She needs to be in a facility where professionals can monitor her condition, or she needs home health care services. What you've been doing, carrying her to school every day, He paused, searching for words. It's incredibly brave, but it's not sustainable. And it shouldn't be your responsibility. But I'm all she has, Sophia insisted, that familiar panic rising again. If I don't take care of her, who will? That's what we're going to figure out, Principal Davidson interjected. Sophia, I've been making some calls while we've been waiting. The school has resources we can tap into. There are community organizations, charities, emergency assistance programs. You don't have to do this alone anymore. Sophia wanted to believe her, but hope felt dangerous. Part 3. While Sophia sat in the hospital waiting to see her mother, something remarkable was happening back at Jefferson Middle School. Principal Davidson's call to action had brought nearly every staff member to the conference room during their free periods. Teachers who should have been grading papers sat shoulder to shoulder with counselors, administrators, cafeteria workers, and maintenance staff. The room was packed, standing room only, and the energy was electric. Mr. Chen stood at the front explaining what he'd witnessed that morning. His voice cracked as he described the sight of that small girl, barely taller than his shoulder, carrying her sick mother on her back. He told them about the homemade sling, the way Sophia's legs had been shaking, the fever burning through Victoria's body. I've worked in schools for 32 years, he said, wiping his eyes unselfconsciously. I've seen a lot of hard things, but I've never seen anything like this. That little girl has been carrying her mother 3 miles every single day, and not one of us noticed. Not one of us saw what was happening right in front of our eyes. The room fell silent. Several teachers were crying openly. Others sat with their heads bowed, grappling with the weight of what they'd missed. So what do we do about it? Coach Bennett finally asked. He was a big man with a reputation for being tough, but his voice was gentle now. That's why we're here, right? To figure out how to help them? Mrs. Washington, the school counselor, stood up. She'd been furiously taking notes since the meeting began. I've been on the phone with county social services. There are emergency assistance programs available, but the application process can take weeks. That family needs help today, not weeks from now. Then we help them today, said Ms. Rodriguez. Right now, we don't wait for bureaucracy to catch up with human need. What are you suggesting? Vice Principal Holbrook asked. He was known for being practical, always focused on rules and procedures. I'm suggesting we take care of our own, Ms. Rodriguez replied firmly. Sophia is one of our students. Her mother is part of our school family by extension. We have resources right here in this room. She pulled out her wallet and placed $40 on the table in front of her. This is what I have on me right now. It's not much, but it's a start. For a moment, no one moved. Then Mr. Chen reached into his pocket and added $23 to the pile. Coach Bennett emptied his wallet of $60. One by one, every person in that room added what they could. Bills piled up on the table, 1s and 5s and 20s, even a few 50s. The cafeteria manager added a $100 check written on the spot. Mrs. Washington counted it with shaking hands. $947, she announced. In less than 5 minutes, we've raised almost $1,000. That'll help with immediate needs, Mr. Holbrook acknowledged, his earlier skepticism giving way to something softer. But they need more than emergency cash. They need a long-term solution. I have a spare bedroom, offered Ms. Rodriguez. My daughter moved out last month for college. It's just sitting empty. They could stay with me while we figure things out more permanently. My brother runs a medical supply company, chimed in the art teacher, Mrs. Palmer. I can get them a wheelchair, a hospital bed, whatever equipment they need at cost, maybe even donated. Coach Bennett raised his hand. I drive right past their neighborhood on my way to school every morning. I can pick them up and bring them home every day. No more walking 3 miles with that poor woman on her back. Ideas started flowing faster now, each person contributing what they could. The music teacher knew a doctor who did charity work. The librarian's sister was a physical therapist who might donate services. The Spanish teacher had connections with a local food bank. One of the guidance counselors specialized in disability benefits applications and offered to help Victoria navigate the paperwork. We need to be organized about this, Vice Principal Holbrook said, and he was smiling now, genuinely smiling. Let's make a list of immediate needs versus long-term support. They spent the next hour creating a comprehensive plan. Mrs. Washington would coordinate with social services and help Sophia's mother apply for every benefit and assistance program available. Ms. Rodriguez would offer temporary housing. Coach Bennett would provide transportation. The school nurse would coordinate medical care and make sure Victoria got to her appointments. Several teachers volunteered to tutor Sophia for free to help her catch up on the work she'd missed while caring for her mother. What about the eviction? Someone asked. They're 3 months behind on rent. Mr. Holbrook pulled out his phone. Let me make a call. My wife's cousin works in property management. Maybe we can negotiate with their landlord or find them something more affordable. While the staff at Jefferson Middle School mobilized into action, Sophia finally got to see her mother. She'd been moved to a regular room, and though she still looked pale and weak, she was awake and her eyes were clear. My baby, Victoria whispered as Sophia rushed to her bedside. I'm so sorry you had to go through all this. Don't apologize, Mama, please don't. Sophia took her mother's hand carefully, mindful of the IV line running into it. The doctors say you're going to be okay. Sophia, sweetheart, we need to talk about what happens next. Victoria's eyes filled with tears. I can't ask you to keep taking care of me like this. You're a child. You should be worried about school and friends and normal things, not whether your mother is going to make it through another day. Stop it, Sophia said fiercely. You're my mom. Taking care of you isn't a burden, it's what family does. But we can't keep living like we have been, Victoria insisted gently. Even I can see that now. Maybe it would be better if what? If they put me in foster care? If we get separated? Sophia's voice rose, panic making it sharp. No, absolutely not. We stay together no matter what. Principal Davidson, who'd been standing quietly by the door, stepped forward. Maybe I can help with that conversation. Victoria, I know we haven't met before, but I'm Principal Davidson from Jefferson Middle School. I need you to know something important. You're not alone anymore. She pulled up a chair beside the bed and spent the next 20 minutes explaining everything the staff had done and was planning to do. Victoria listened in stunned silence, tears streaming down her face. I don't understand, she finally said. Why would all these people, these strangers, want to help us? Because Sophia is one of ours, Principal Davidson said simply. And when one of our students is hurting, we all feel it. What your daughter did, carrying you to school because she had no other choice, because she refused to leave you alone or risk losing you, that showed us something about the kind of person she is. And it showed us that we failed to see what was happening to one of our own children. You didn't fail anyone, Victoria protested weakly. We did, though. Sophia has been struggling right in front of us, and we didn't notice. That's on us, but we're noticing now, and we're going to make it right. The principal's voice was firm with conviction. You have a whole community ready to support you, Victoria. Teachers, staff, parents, people who want to help not because they pity you, but because they recognize strength when they see it. You've raised an incredible daughter while fighting a terrible disease, and you've done it with no support system. That ends today. Victoria sobbed openly now, her thin shoulders shaking. Sophia climbed carefully onto the hospital bed beside her, wrapping her arms around her mother as gently as she could. Is this real? Victoria whispered. This isn't some dream? It's real, Mama, Sophia assured her. They really want to help us. A nurse poked her head in, drawn by the sound of crying. Everything okay in here? Yes, Victoria managed to say through her tears. Everything's okay. For the first time in a very long time, everything's actually okay. The nurse smiled. Good, I'm glad to hear it. Victoria, the social worker will be coming by soon to talk to you about discharge planning and follow-up care. Your doctor wants to keep you here for at least 2 days to make sure the infection is completely cleared up and to stabilize your other symptoms. After the nurse left, Principal Davidson stood to go. I need to get back to school, but I'll be checking in regularly. Sophia, I've arranged for you to have the next 2 days off to stay with your mother. Mrs. Washington will bring you your homework so you don't fall behind. Thank you, Sophia said, and the words felt inadequate for the magnitude of what these people were doing for them. Don't thank me yet, Principal Davidson said with a wink. The next morning, news of Sophia's story began to spread beyond the walls of Jefferson Middle School. It started with a post on the school's Facebook page from Ms. Rodriguez, written during her lunch break. She'd meant to share it just with friends and family, a simple update about a student in need and how the school was rallying to help. She included a photo she'd taken that morning of the collection jar, now sitting in the front office, already filling with donations from parents who'd heard what happened. What Ms. Rodriguez didn't anticipate was how quickly her post would be shared. By midday, it had been passed along to local parent groups. By evening, it had reached the community news section of the city's website. By the next morning, a local television reporter named Christine Warren was standing in Principal Davidson's office, asking if she could do a story. I understand if you want to protect Sophia's privacy, Christine said. But this is the kind of story people need to hear right now. A child's love for her parent. A community coming together to help their own. In a world full of bad news, this is something beautiful. Principal Davidson called Victoria at the hospital. Sophia answered the phone, and together they decided that yes, if sharing their story could help others in similar situations, then it was worth it. Besides, Sophia said with a maturity beyond her years, they had nothing left to be ashamed of. The story aired that evening during the 6 o'clock news. Christine had interviewed Sophia at the hospital, with Victoria in the background propped up in her bed. Sophia had been nervous at first, but once she started talking, the words flowed naturally. She spoke about her mother's illness, about her father leaving, about the impossible choice she'd made to bring her mother to school. I just couldn't leave her alone, Sophia told the camera, her voice steady even as her eyes glistened with unshed tears. She's my mom. She's always taken care of me. It was my turn to take care of her. The piece ended with footage of the school staff, of the collection jar, of Principal Davidson explaining the response. This is what community means, the principal said. It means seeing someone who needs help and saying, what can I do? What it means recognizing that we're all connected, that another person's struggle diminishes all of us and their triumph lifts us all up. The response was immediate and overwhelming. The school's phone lines lit up within minutes of the story airing. People from across the city wanted to know how they could help. By the time the office closed that evening, over 200 people had called or emailed offering money, services, supplies, or support. The next morning brought even more. A local restaurant owner called to offer free meals for Sophia and her mother for the next 6 months. A furniture store wanted to donate a proper hospital bed and a comfortable recliner. A pharmaceutical company representative reached out about getting Victoria into a patient assistance program that would cover her expensive medications at no cost. But the real flood came when the story was picked up by a national news aggregator website. Suddenly, people from all over the country were learning about Sophia and her mother. The school had to set up a dedicated email address and a GoFundMe page just to handle all the donations that were coming in. Mrs. Washington, who'd volunteered to manage the fund, could barely believe what she was seeing. We've raised $15,000 in 24 hours, she told Principal Davidson, her hands shaking as she refreshed the web page. People are donating $10, $50, $100. One person just gave $1,000. I don't even know what to say. Say thank you, Principal Davidson replied, but she was blinking back tears herself. Say thank you, and make sure every penny goes to helping that family. At the hospital, Sophia and Victoria were equally overwhelmed. Nurses kept popping in to tell them about calls they'd received from people wanting to help. One nurse brought in a card that had been delivered to the hospital front desk, addressed simply to the brave girl and her mother. Inside was $500 in cash and a note that read, "My own mother had MS. I know how hard this is. You're not alone." Victoria couldn't stop crying, happy tears this time. tears of relief and disbelief and gratitude so profound it physically hurt. "I don't understand how this is happening," she kept saying. "We've been invisible for so long. How did we suddenly become visible?" "Love," Sophia said simply, holding her mother's hand. "Everyone could see how much we love each other, and it reminded them of what really matters." On the third day, Victoria was discharged from the hospital. True to his word, Coach Bennett was there with his van, which he'd outfitted with extra cushions and pillows to make the ride comfortable. He'd also brought his wife, Patricia, a nurse who'd taken the day off work to help with the transition. "We're taking you to Ms. Rodriguez's house," Coach Bennett explained as he carefully helped Victoria into a brand new wheelchair that had been donated by Mrs. Palmer's brother. "She's got everything set up for you. And before you argue that you're imposing, she told me to tell you that having people in her empty house is a blessing, not a burden. The drive across town should have felt strange or awkward, but somehow it didn't." Patricia chatted easily with Victoria about managing MS symptoms, sharing tips she'd learned from her patients over the years. Sophia sat in the back, watching the city pass by the window, feeling like she was in some kind of dream. Ms. Rodriguez's house was a small, neat bungalow with a ramp that Coach Bennett had installed the day before, leading up to the front porch. The teacher herself was waiting at the door, her face lit up with a genuine smile. "Welcome home," she said, and then laughed at herself. "I mean, welcome to your temporary home, for as long as you need it." Inside, the guest bedroom had been transformed. The hospital bed the furniture store donated was set up with fresh linens. There was a bedside table with a lamp, a basket of toiletries, and a small vase of flowers. Someone had hung cheerful curtains at the window. In the corner sat a comfortable chair for Sophia, along with a small desk for her homework. "The bathroom is right across the hall," Ms. Rodriguez explained. "I've installed grab bars and a shower seat. Your medications are organized in the kitchen, and I've created a chart so we can keep track of timing and dosages. The physical therapist Mrs. Palmer knows is coming by tomorrow to do an initial assessment." Victoria couldn't speak. She just kept looking around the room, tears streaming down her face. "Why?" she finally managed to ask. "Why would you do all this for us? You don't even know us." Ms. Rodriguez knelt down beside the wheelchair, taking Victoria's hands in hers. "I do know you. I know you're a mother who raised a daughter capable of extraordinary love and sacrifice. I know you're a fighter who's been battling an impossible disease with no support. I know you're exactly the kind of person who deserves help, even though you'd never ask for it." She paused, her own eyes glistening. "And honestly, helping you helps me too. My daughter just left for college and this house has been so empty. Having you here, being useful again, being needed, that's a gift to me." Over the next few days, a steady stream of visitors came by. Teachers dropped off care packages and gift cards. Parents from school brought home-cooked meals. The physical therapist came and developed a treatment plan. A lawyer from the community legal aid office showed up pro bono to help with disability benefits applications and to negotiate with their old landlord about the back rent. The GoFundMe page continued to climb. $20,000, $30,000, $45,000. With each milestone, Mrs. Washington called with updates, her voice filled with wonder. "Do you know what this means?" she asked Victoria during one call. "This means you can afford your medications. This means you can pay off your medical debts. This means Sophia can just be a kid again." But perhaps the most meaningful moment came a week after Victoria's discharge. 3 weeks after that, early morning when Mr. Chen first saw Sophia carrying her mother through the school gates, Jefferson Middle School held a special assembly. The auditorium was packed, not just with students and staff, but with community members who'd been following the story and wanted to be part of what came next. Sophia sat in the front row, dressed in new clothes that Ms. Rodriguez had taken her shopping for. Beside her sat her mother, no longer in a hospital wheelchair but in a proper motorized one, donated by a medical equipment company after seeing the news story. Victoria looked healthier than she had in months. The antibiotics had cleared her infection, and finally being back on her disease-modifying medication was already making a difference. She still couldn't walk, probably never would again, but her eyes were bright and clear, her mind sharp. Principal Davidson took the stage, and the auditorium fell quiet. "Thank you all for being here today," she began. 3 weeks ago, something happened at our school that changed all of us. We witnessed an act of love so pure and selfless that it opened our eyes to what really matters. Sophia, would you please come up here? Sophia's heart pounded as she walked up the steps to the stage. She'd been told this assembly was happening, but not exactly what it would entail. Sophia, Principal Davidson said, putting a hand on the girl's shoulder. What you did for your mother, carrying her to school every day because you refused to leave her alone or risk being separated from her, that showed us what true courage looks like. It also showed us that we'd failed to see what was happening to one of our own students. She turned to face the audience. Sophia's story has touched thousands of people. The outpouring of support has been extraordinary. But more than that, it's taught us all a lesson about community, about paying attention, about being willing to help when we see someone struggling. Mr. Chen came onto the stage then, carrying a large envelope. Sophia, he said, his voice thick with emotion, I was the first one to see you that morning. The image of you carrying your mother, refusing to give up on her or on yourself, that's going to stay with me for the rest of my life. You inspired this whole community to be better, to do more. He handed her the envelope. Sophia opened it with shaking hands, pulling out a document she didn't understand at first. Then her eyes caught the number at the bottom and she gasped. The community has raised $67,000 for your family, Principal Davidson announced, and the auditorium erupted in applause. This money is going into a trust fund. Some of it will cover your immediate needs, your mother's medical care, stable housing, and everything else you require. But a significant portion has been set aside for your education. Sophia, you have a full college scholarship waiting for you when you're ready. Sophia couldn't speak. She looked out at the audience, at all these faces of people who'd helped them, and felt overwhelmed by the sheer magnitude of human kindness. But Principal Davidson wasn't finished. We've also established the Sophia Fund, a permanent assistance program through the school district to help other families facing similar hardships. No child should have to carry their sick parent to school. No family should have to choose between medication and rent. We're going to do better. The assembly continued with testimonials from teachers and community members. Coach Bennett talked about the morning driving routine he'd established with Sophia and Victoria, how picking them up each day had become the highlight of his morning. Ms. Rodriguez spoke about how having them in her home had filled a void she didn't even know was there. The pharmaceutical company representative explained how they'd been able to get Victoria into a permanent patient assistance program that would cover her medications indefinitely. Then it was Sophia's turn to speak. She'd prepared something with her mother's help. But standing at the podium looking out at everyone, the prepared words fled from her mind. I don't really know what to say, she began, her voice small at first but growing stronger. A few weeks ago I thought my life was over. I thought my mom was dying and there was nothing I could do to save her. I thought we were going to lose our home and end up on the streets. I thought I was going to be taken away from the only person in the world who's always been there for me. She paused, wiping her eyes. I carried my mom to school that day because I didn't have any other choice. I didn't think it was brave or special. I just thought it was what you do when you love someone. But what happened after, what all of you did, that's what's really special. You saw us. You really saw us and you decided we mattered. Her voice broke and she had to take a moment to compose herself. My whole life I've felt invisible. At school, I was just the quiet girl in the back who didn't have nice clothes or friends who invited her to birthday parties. At home it was just me and my mom against the world, and the world felt really big and really hard. But you all showed me that people are good, that communities take care of each other, that love is stronger than hardship. She looked at her mother, who was crying openly in the front row. My mom always told me that education was the most important thing, that it was the one thing no one could ever take away from me. Even when she was so sick she could barely speak, even when we had nothing, she made sure I kept going to school. She carried me all those years, even though I didn't realize it. So when it was my turn to carry her, it wasn't a burden. It was an honor. The auditorium was completely silent now, everyone hanging on her words. I don't know if I can ever repay what you've all done for us, Sophia continued. The money, the help, the kindness, it's more than I ever dreamed possible. But I can promise you this, I'm going to make the most of it. I'm going to study hard and do well in school. I'm going to take care of my mom and make sure she gets everything she needs. And someday when I'm grown up and able, I'm going to help other people the way you've all helped us. Because that's what you do when someone shows you kindness. You pass it on. The applause when she finished was deafening. Students stood up, then teachers, then everyone in the auditorium. It was a standing ovation that went on and on, not just for Sophia, but for the power of community, for the triumph of compassion over indifference. After the assembly, there was a reception in the cafeteria. Sophia was surrounded by well-wishers, by students who wanted to tell her how brave she was, by adults who wanted to shake her hand or give her a hug. Through it all, she kept glancing back at her mother, making sure she was okay, that she had what she needed. Victoria caught her eye across the room and mouthed, "I'm okay. Go be a kid." And for the first time in years, Sophia felt like she could. The weight she'd been carrying, literally and figuratively, had been lifted. She didn't have to wake up at 4 in the morning anymore wondering how she'd get through another day. She didn't have to make impossible choices between her education and her mother's well-being. She didn't have to do it alone. Later that evening, back at Ms. Rodriguez's house, Sophia sat with her mother in the cozy living room. Victoria was in her motorized wheelchair. Sophia curled up on the couch beside her with a blanket and a cup of hot chocolate Ms. Rodriguez had made before tactfully giving them some privacy. "Can you believe this is our life now?" Sophia asked, still processing everything that had happened. "Honestly?" "No," Victoria admitted. "I keep waiting to wake up and find out it was all a dream. But it's real, baby. This is really happening. Are you happy, Mama?" Victoria reached out and took her daughter's hand. "Happy doesn't even begin to cover it. I'm grateful, I'm hopeful, I'm home. For the first time since your father left, I feel like we have a home. We're going to be okay," Sophia said. And it wasn't a question anymore. It was a statement of fact. "Better than okay," Victoria promised. "Sophia, my beautiful brave girl, we're going to thrive. You're going to finish middle school and go to high school and then college. You're going to have friends and activities and all the normal teenage experiences you deserve. And I'm going to get the treatment I need and be the best mom I can be, even from this wheelchair. You've always been the best mom," Sophia said fiercely. They sat together in comfortable silence for a while, just being together without crisis, without fear, without the crushing weight of impossible circumstances. "You know what Mr. Chen told me today?" Sophia said eventually. "He said that the morning he saw me carrying you, at first he couldn't understand what he was looking at. He thought maybe I was wearing a really weird backpack. It wasn't until he got closer that he realized it was a person, that it was my mom. He said it was the most heartbreaking and beautiful thing he'd ever seen." "Heartbreaking, I understand," Victoria said. "But beautiful?" "He said it was beautiful because it showed him what love looks like when it's tested. When there are no easy answers and no good options, but you keep going anyway, because giving up isn't a choice." Sophia looked at her mother. "He said watching everyone come together to help us restored his faith in humanity, that we gave the whole community a gift by letting them be part of our story." Victoria smiled through fresh tears. "We've cried more in the past 3 weeks than in the past 3 years. Happy tears, though," Sophia pointed out. "That's different." Ms. Rodriguez came back in then, asking if they wanted dinner. She'd made chicken soup and fresh bread, and the house smelled wonderful. As they moved to the kitchen table, Sophia realized this was what normal families did. They sat together and ate meals and talked about their days. It was such a simple thing, but for her and her mother it was revolutionary. That night, lying in her new bed in the room next to her mother's, Sophia thought about everything that had changed. Just weeks ago, she'd been waking up on a thin mattress on the floor of a cold apartment, dreading another day of carrying her mother through the streets, terrified of what would happen when they finally couldn't go on anymore. Now she was in a warm house with a full stomach, and the knowledge that her mother was being cared for. The medications that had been impossibly expensive were now covered. They had housing, food security, and a community.